All right, Pythagoras. We all know the name, right? And we definitely all know the theorem. But the man himself? Well, that's a whole other story. He's one of history's great enigmas. So let's get into it, because the story you think you know, it's really just the tip of the triangle.
I mean, for more than 2,000 years, this one, simple, elegant proof has been the absolute bedrock of geometry. It's been etched into the mind of every single student who's ever had to pick up a compass in math class. It really feels like a monument to pure, cold logic and reason.
But what if I told you the man who proved it was less of a mathematician and maybe more of a mystic? What if that famous equation wasn't just about triangles, but about the very soul of the universe? Now that's the real story of Pythagoras. See, he wasn't just solving for C, he was on a quest for the hidden mathematical code of reality itself.
So, to really understand this guy, we've got to follow his footsteps. Because long before he was a master, he was a seeker. His life was this epic journey, crisscrossing the ancient world, a quest that lasted for decades, all together these little fragments of truth that he believed were scattered across different civilizations.
And just think about the sheer scale of this journey for a second. This wasn't some gap-year adventure, okay? This was a lifetime of learning. He was born on this bustling Greek island, Samos. Then he goes and spends over 20 years in Egypt just soaking up ancient wisdom. And if that's not enough, he gets captured during a Persian invasion and hauled off to Babylon as a prisoner. It was only after all that he finally gets to Italy to start what we'd call his life's work. And here's the really crucial part. Pythagoras was creating this incredible synthesis of ideas, something nobody had really tried before. It's like he was taking ingredients from all over the world. From his fellow Greeks, he took logic and reason. Check. In Egypt, he learned that geometry wasn't just math, it was a sacred language. Got it. In Babylon, he mastered astronomy. And then, from these Orphic mystery cults, he embraced this deep belief in an immortal, reincarnating soul. He literally fused Eastern mysticism with Western logic, and he used numbers as the universal translator to make it all fit together.
So, after decades of wandering and learning, Pythagoras was finally ready to build something. But he wasn't building a temple out of stone. Nope, he was building a community of minds. He lands in the southern Italian city of Croton and founds this society, this brotherhood, all dedicated to one thing: living their lives in perfect harmony with the mathematical principles he believed governed the entire universe.
And let me tell you, getting into this community, it was intense. I mean, for starters, if you wanted to join, you had to take a vow of complete silence for 5 years. Can you even imagine that? 5 years of no talking. They lived communally, so they shared everything. They were vegetarians because they believed in reincarnation. And get this, they weren't allowed to eat beans. Yeah, beans. They thought they disturbed the body's harmony or something. And every single day was this ritual where math and music weren't like homework. They were a spiritual practice, a way to literally tune your soul. Okay, so at the very heart of their whole philosophy was this one symbol, the tetractys. It's basically a triangle made of 10 little dots. Now, why 10? Well, because 10 is 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4. And for them, those first 4 numbers held the entire blueprint for creation. You had 1 for unity, 2 for duality, 3 for harmony, and 4 for space. To the Pythagoreans, this wasn't just a cool shape, it was a mathematical proof of a divine order, and they swore their most sacred oaths on it.
You know, he even changed the way we talk about knowledge. Before Pythagoras, really smart people were called sages, which kind of implies they already have all the answers. Pythagoras hated that. He believed knowledge wasn't something you had, it was something you pursued. So he actually coined a new word, philosopher, which comes from the Greek words for lover and wisdom. So a philosopher isn't someone who is wise, but someone who loves and seeks wisdom. That was a totally revolutionary and way more democratic idea at the time.
And here's another thing that was just completely radical for the time. His school was open to women, as intellectual equals. I mean, this was almost unheard of in ancient Greece. You had thinkers like Theano, who might have been his wife, who was a leading mathematician in her own right. Mia was writing about how to raise children. Arigno was writing treatises on the cosmos. And then there was Tamika, who became a martyr. She literally chose to be tortured and killed rather than give up the Brotherhood's mathematical secrets. So this wasn't just some token tolerance, it was a core belief. They thought true universal harmony needed all voices.
And for a while there, in Croton, it really seemed like Pythagoras had pulled it off. He had created his utopia, this little society built on reason, music, and numbers. But, you know, even the most perfect harmony can be shattered by the noise of the outside world, and that noise was getting louder and louder.
Pythagoras had this incredibly beautiful, almost poetic idea. He discovered that musical notes all correspond to simple mathematical ratios. You know, like how a string that's half the length of another one produces a note that's an octave higher. It's just math. So he took this giant leap and concluded that the entire universe must be a grand musical instrument. He believed the planets, as they moved through their orbits, were following these same perfect ratios, creating this cosmic symphony that he called the harmony of the spheres, a divine music that he thought only a truly purified soul could ever hear.
So while the Pythagoreans were inside, trying to tune in and listen to the music of the cosmos, a very, very different sound was growing in the streets of Croton. It was the sound of suspicion, of jealousy, and of fear.
So where did it all go wrong? Well, ironically, their secrecy was their undoing. All those vows of silence and their hidden mathematical teachings, it just made regular people really suspicious. And then, as members of the Brotherhood started getting powerful positions in the local government, a lot of folks started seeing it as a conspiracy. They started to look like this elite, kind of arrogant cult. All that resentment just needed a spark, and it found one in a guy named Cylon. He was this rich noble who tried to join and got rejected, and he basically turned his personal grudge into a political firestorm.
And that conflict, it reached a really horrifying climax. A mob, whipped into a frenzy by Cylon, surrounded the house where the Pythagoreans were having a meeting. They blocked the doors and just set the building on fire. This sanctuary of reason, this place built on silence and numbers, was totally consumed by flames and pure rage. A lot of the brothers' leading thinkers were killed that day.
But what about Pythagoras himself? What happened to him? Well, history's a little fuzzy on that, which honestly just adds to the whole mystique around him. One theory is that he got away from the fire, but was hunted down and killed later. Another story says he escaped to a city called Metapunctum, but ended up starving to death in exile when no one would help him. We just don't know for sure. His final days are a total mystery.
So the man was gone. The community was completely destroyed. But here's the thing. You can't burn an idea. The embers of Pythagorean thought were scattered all across the Greek world, and those little sparks would eventually ignite the minds of some of the greatest thinkers in all of history.
And I mean, his influence was deep. It echoed for centuries. That Pythagorean obsession with logical proof, it becomes the foundation for Euclid's Elements, probably the most important math textbook ever written. The belief that reality is, at its core, just math, that idea directly inspires Galileo and the birth of modern physics. Plato's whole vision of a perfect society in the Republic, that's a direct callback to the Pythagorean communal life. And even Johannes Kepler, hundreds and hundreds of years later, his laws of planetary motion were basically him trying to finally prove that ancient harmony of the spheres with math.
But maybe nothing, and I mean nothing, shows his influence more clearly than this one thing. When Plato, arguably the most important philosopher of the ancient world, founded his own school, the famous Academy, he had a phrase carved right over the entrance: "Let no one ignorant of geometry enter." That was a direct tribute to Pythagoras. It was a declaration that the path to true wisdom, to philosophy itself, had to begin with the language of the universe, mathematics.
So, yeah, Pythagoras was so much more than just the triangle guy. He was a visionary who looked at the cosmos and saw an ordered, beautiful, and, most importantly, knowable place. He truly believed that through numbers, music, and reason, we can actually tune our own souls to its incredible harmony. He started this quest to hear that cosmic song, and when you think about it, in so many ways, from particle physics to cosmology, that's a quest we're all still on today. We're still learning how to listen.